I was jealous and envious of my best friend. It ruined my entire life. Cassie Monroe has always been sunlight, golden hair that caught every shimmer of day, laughter that made rooms tilt toward her like flowers chasing warmth. And me, I was her shadow, the quiet friend who smiled too much, clapped the loudest, and tried not to notice how invisible I was next to her. We met in second grade. She had just moved into the big blue house at the end of Maple Street, carrying a pink lunchbox and the kind of confidence you can't buy. By lunch she had 12 friends. I had one, her. By 28 Cassie was a marketing star with a corner office and $1 million smile. I was still an assistant, writing the campaigns she took credit for. I told myself I didn't mind. I told myself that friendship meant letting her shine, but that lie cracked the night she announced her engagement to Derek Hayes, my Derek, the man I'd loved in silence for 3 years. Cassie invited me to the engagement dinner herself. "Nads, you'll sit right next to me," she said, squeezing my hand. "You're my person, you have to be there." I said yes, of course. What else do shadows do when the sun calls? The restaurant was candlelit and perfect, the kind of place I'd never afford. Cassie wore white silk, I wore a discount dress and a practiced smile. When Derek arrived, he kissed her forehead and said, "You look breathtaking." My heart folded in half. During the toast, Cassie turned to me. "Nadine, known me forever," she said. She probably thought she'd end up my maid of honor. Everyone laughed, I did too, because crying would have been too honest. Later, when she leaned over and whispered, "I hope this isn't weird for you," I finally realized it was never about love for her. It was about winning. I started noticing the patterns, the promotion that slipped through my fingers. Cassie had helped polish my pitch deck, then mysteriously presented it herself. The rumor at work that I was emotionally unstable. Cassie had worried to HR that I was under pressure. The friend who ghosted me after Cassie's warning that I was jealous. It all made sense in hindsight, but back then I blamed myself. Maybe I was jealous, maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe Cassie deserved everything she had because she was fearless and I was timid. That night I stood in front of the mirror and whispered, "Be happy for her." But my reflection didn't believe me anymore. When Derek texted me the next morning, "Thank you for being there. You're really special, Nadine." Stomach twisted, Cassie saw the message. She replied from his phone, "Please stop texting my fiancé." It started with a mistake, hers, not mine. Cassie had left her laptop at my apartment after one of our girls' nights. She'd fallen asleep after too many glasses of wine and I'd tucked her in like always. The next morning, while packing her bag, a notification popped up. Email from Helen Monroe. I wasn't snooping at first, but the subject line caught my eye, "Managing Nadine's confidence." My breath froze. I clicked. The email was from Cassie's mother. "You're doing well, sweetheart. Keep her dependent, she's your balance. Don't let her think she's your equal." Cassie had replied, "Don't worry, Mom, she still thinks I'm her best friend." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. 21 years of friendship, every sleepover, every birthday, every secret, suddenly felt like evidence in a crime scene. That was the moment my envy turned into clarity, and my silence turned into a plan. For 6 months I pretended nothing had changed. I laughed at Cassie's jokes, helped her plan the wedding, even stood beside her as she tried on her dress. But behind every smile I was collecting pieces, screenshots, emails, texts, every lie she ever told. I met with old co-workers who'd been burned by her ambition. I contacted an accountant friend who helped me trace the Monroe family charity funds. What I found made my blood run cold. Hundreds of thousands siphoned from donations made in my late mother's name. Cassie knew. She'd known for years. That was when I stopped calling it revenge. This wasn't about jealousy anymore. This was about justice, and justice, I decided, would taste better than forgiveness ever could. The engagement party was in 3 weeks. Cassie wanted me to give the toast. I planned to give her a reckoning. The weeks leading up to Cassie's engagement party were a performance, and I played my role perfectly. Bridesmaid brunches, fittings, gift registries. Every moment was curated for her highlight reel. Cassie loved an audience. "You're my rock, Nads," she said one afternoon, sipping champagne. "I don't know what I'd do without you." The irony almost made me laugh. She didn't know what she'd do without me. Easy, she'd have no one left to manipulate, but I smiled anyway. "You'll always have me." That was the truth. She would have me, but not in the way she expected. Behind the scenes, I was the quiet storm building at the edge of her perfect sky. And when I broke, I promised myself, she would drown in the same flood she created. Derek reached out to me again, this time through email. He wrote, "I feel like I lost you. I miss our talks. Things with Cassie feel off." For a moment my chest tightened. Maybe he saw it too, the cracks behind her perfect smile. But then guilt slithered in. I wasn't innocent either. I was manipulating this, even if for justice. I replied carefully, "You didn't lose me. You just stopped looking, it was reckless, but part of me wanted him to see what I saw. The next day Cassie cornered me at work. Funny thing, she said, voice dripping honey. Derek's been acting weird, you wouldn't know anything about that, would you? I met her gaze and smiled sweetly. You taught me everything I know about weird. For the first time she didn't laugh, her eyes narrowed, and I knew she sensed it. The shadow was moving. Cassie had always been subtle with her cruelty until that week. She told my boss I'd mishandled a client pitch. She accidentally copied me on an email chain mocking my ideas. She spread a rumor that I'd been stealing credit from junior staff, but this time I didn't cry. I documented everything. Every lie, every timestamp. Meanwhile, I hired a forensic tech to trace the charity embezzlement. He found the transfers hidden in Helen Monroe's name, but laundered through shell companies Cassie herself had signed for, mother and daughter. Partners in crime. It was bigger than revenge now. I could destroy them both, legally, publicly, irrevocably. And yet, as I looked at the files, I felt something colder than satisfaction. This wasn't just about justice. It was about watching Cassie experience what she made me feel for 21 years, helplessness. The night of the engagement party was cinematic, a rooftop venue, string lights, champagne towers. Cassie glowed like the goddess she always pretended to be, the crowd orbiting her like worshippers. I arrived in black, not mourning exactly, more like premonition. She hugged me for the cameras. You look stunning. So do you, I replied. It's almost unreal. And it was, because behind her the projector screen was waiting, my secret weapon. I arranged for a surprise tribute video. Cassie thought it would be a slideshow of our friendship. In a way it was just the unfiltered version. They handed me the microphone. Everyone, I began, voice steady, I've known Cassie Monroe for 21 years. She's always been extraordinary, smart, beautiful, fearless. Cassie smiled, touched. She didn't notice my hand shaking, or maybe she thought it was nerves. But there's something else she's always been, I continued. Relentlessly talented at taking what she wants, even when it doesn't belong to her. The first photo flickered onto the screen, Cassie's private messages. The audience gasped. Emails, bank transfers, Helen's correspondence, the graduation humiliation, everything. Derek's face turned white, Cassie's smile collapsed. You didn't fall in love with him, I said, locking eyes with her. You targeted him. The crowd erupted, cameras flashed, and just like that, Cassie Monroe's perfect world caught fire. The next morning I woke to chaos. My phone had nearly melted overnight, hundreds of missed calls, thousands of notifications. The video had gone viral. Millions of views. Cassie Monroe exposed was trending. Clips of her stunned face, Derek's shock, my calm delivery. It was cinematic justice. I should have felt triumphant. I'd planned this moment for months, but as I scrolled through the comments, Queen energy. That toast was legendary. Best revenge ever. My stomach twisted. It wasn't justice anymore. It was entertainment. Cassie wasn't the only one on trial. My soul was too. When Derek texted, "How could you do this publicly?" I didn't reply because the truth was ugly. I had to do it publicly. Quiet justice would never have hurt enough, and I wasn't done yet. By midweek, Cassie was radioactive. Her company suspended her pending investigation. Her mother's charity was raided by auditors. Derek moved out of their apartment and into a hotel. Every glossy photo of her on social media now had comments like fraud, liar, thief. For years, Cassie had curated perfection, and now the world was curating her destruction. I watched the live stream of her tearful press statement, her mascara running like ink on old paper. I never meant to hurt anyone, she sobbed. I muted it halfway through, because I recognized that tone, the same performance I'd given 100 times to survive her manipulation. Only now the audience had changed, and for the first time, Cassie was powerless to rewrite the script. He came to my apartment a week later. Derek looked exhausted, like someone who'd seen behind too many masks. I broke off the engagement, he said quietly. She admitted it, all of it. I nodded. I'm sorry you got caught in this. He gave a hollow laugh. No, you're not sorry, you're relieved. That strung, because he wasn't wrong. I just wanted the truth out, I said. He looked at me for a long time. You didn't just want truth, Nadine, you wanted destruction, and you got it. Then he left. The door closed softly, but it felt like a gunshot. For the first time since that night I cried, because I realized what I'd lost was Derek. It was the part of myself that still believed revenge could make me clean again. The investigation tore through the Monroes' empire like wildfire. Helen was indicted for embezzlement and tax fraud. Cassie's assets were frozen pending review. Every brand partnership, every sponsorship, every social deal gone overnight. Reporters camped outside their mansion gates, but I wasn't free either. Cassie's lawyers filed a defamation suit against me. I'd gone too far, shared confidential work files, used internal correspondence without consent. My job suspended me. My reputation. Torn apart by think pieces debating whether I was a hero or a monster. Nadine Rivers exposed trended next. Turns out when you burn someone publicly, the fire doesn't care who started it, it just keeps spreading. And I was standing in the ashes, unsure if I'd actually won or just destroyed us both. Cassie disappeared for 3 months. Then came the photo, grainy tabloid style, her hair unkempt, her eyes vacant, her body frail. The caption read, "Former PR mogul Cassie Monroe admitted to private psychiatric facility." I stared at it for a long time. This was the woman who once controlled rooms, headlines, hearts. Now she looked like a ghost of her own creation. I should have felt vindicated. But all I felt was empty, because beneath all the hate there had been love once, twisted, tangled, real. We had shared birthdays, secrets, heartbreaks, and now I'd erased her, not just from my life, but from herself. My therapist later called it trauma bonding. I called it mutual destruction. Cassie lost her mind, and I was starting to lose my soul. It didn't take long for the tide to turn. The same people who'd called me a hero were now calling me vindictive, unstable, toxic. Think pieces sprouted everywhere. When revenge becomes a brand, the ethics of humiliation. My inbox filled with hate. Strangers told me to get help, to move on, to forgive. Forgive. They had no idea what it was like to be erased for years, to have your words twisted and your worth crushed. But somewhere deep down I realized they weren't wrong. I turned my pain into a spectacle. I'd fought cruelty with cruelty. And now I was the villain in someone else's story. It wasn't fair, but it was true, and truth, I'd learned, doesn't care who bleeds, it just wants to be seen. After the defamation case was dropped, settled quietly out of court, I vanished. No social media. No phone, no news. I moved into a small cabin near the lake, surrounded by silence thick enough to choke on. Days blurred into each other. I painted, I cooked, I read, I screamed into the woods until my voice gave out. At first it felt like punishment, then slowly like healing. Grief is strange, it sneaks up on you after the war ends, when the noise stops and the ghosts finally have space to speak. Sometimes I'd imagine Cassie sitting across from me, sipping coffee, rolling her eyes like old times. Tell her, "You broke me." And her ghost would reply, "No, Nadine, you finished the breaking yourself." One morning I got a letter, no name, no return address, just 2 words, "I'm sorry." The handwriting, hers, Cassie. My hands trembled as I opened it. She wrote that she was in therapy, that she'd lost everything but finally felt free. She said my public revenge had destroyed her old life, but maybe it was the only way she could ever rebuild an honest one. "I don't expect forgiveness," she wrote. "But I understand you now. You just wanted to be seen." I cried until the paper blurred. For the first time the anger felt lighter, maybe because I realized forgiveness isn't about them. It's about setting yourself free from the fire you started. And I was tired of burning. Months passed before I saw her again. We met at a quiet cafe, away from cameras and curious eyes. She looked fragile but human again. "I thought I'd hate you forever," I said. Cassie smiled weakly. "You did what I couldn't, you told the truth." We talked for hours, about everything and nothing. There was no dramatic apology, no hug, no promise of friendship, just 2 women who had finally outgrown the need to destroy each other. When she left, she touched my arm lightly. "I hope you find peace, Nadine," she whispered. I nodded. "I hope you do too." And just like that, the storm that had consumed years of my life finally began to fade. A year later I stood before my reflection, older, calmer, scarred. The woman staring back wasn't the same one who toasted revenge at that dinner table. She was softer now and stronger in quieter ways. I'd lost my marriage, my career, my reputation. But I'd gained something. Cassie and I had both forgotten how to hold truth, not the kind that humiliates, but the kind that heals. Revenge gave me closure, forgiveness gave me peace, and somewhere between the two I found meaning. When people ask me now if it was worth it, I say this: justice and healing aren't opposites. Sometimes one has to burn for the other to rise. It started with an email subject: "Would you share your story?" A journalist from the Verity Post wanted to feature me in a piece about toxic female friendships. At first I hesitated. I didn't want to be the woman defined by betrayal. But then I thought maybe if I spoke, someone out there would recognize their own Cassie, so I agreed. We met in a quiet studio. The lights were warm, the air still. When the interviewer asked, "Do you regret what you did?" I took a long breath. "I regret waiting so long to love myself enough to stop it," I said. They asked if I forgave Cassie. "Yes," I said softly, "but I'll never excuse her." The interview aired 2 weeks later. It went viral overnight. People didn't see a bitter woman, they saw survival. And for the first time I didn't flinch at the word victim. The messages flooded in, hundreds of women. I see myself in you. I thought I was crazy. I finally left her. I realized I wasn't alone, so I started Project Mirror, a foundation for women recovering from psychological manipulation and emotional abuse in friendships. We hosted small groups first, then online circles. The stories broke me, but they also rebuilt me. Pain turned into purpose, mine and theirs. And when people thanked me, I always said the same thing: I'm not a hero. I'm proof. Cassie's name was never mentioned publicly again, but sometimes I'd see her mother's scandal resurface in the news. Every time I felt less anger, because my life wasn't about them anymore. It was about what I was creating from the ashes. Olivia showed up one night unannounced, holding takeout and a shaky smile. I watched your interview, she said. I cried. We hadn't spoken in months. For a long time she'd blamed me, said I'd gone too far, but now she looked different, softer. You were right, she whispered. Cassie wasn't who I thought she was. We sat on the floor eating noodles, talking like sisters again. She told me she'd started therapy, that she wanted to volunteer for Project Mirror. I smiled through tears. It felt like forgiveness, but not the fairy tale kind. It was quiet, earned, like two survivors meeting in the middle of the wreckage, finally choosing to rebuild together. And that night, for the first time in years, I slept without dreams. Months later, I wrote my story, not the viral version. The real one. I called it, I Was Jealous of My Best Friend, It Saved My Life. It wasn't about revenge or exposure, it was about awakening, about how envy can be a warning, not a sin, how love can blind and silence can kill. The essay spread faster than anything I'd ever written. Book offers followed, podcasts, TV requests, but I wasn't chasing fame. I just wanted the truth to live somewhere outside of pain. Because truth, when spoken aloud, stops being a wound, it becomes a map. And mine led me here, to peace, to purpose, to myself. A year after everything, I visited the old lakeside cafe, Cassie's favorite spot. The owner handed me a sealed envelope. She left this for you. Inside was a note. Thank you for setting me free, even if it broke us both. I'm learning who I am without the mask. No signature, just her handwriting. I smiled sadly and walked to the water. The sunset bled gold across the lake, the same color as forgiveness. I let the letter drift away, paper dissolving into ripples. No hate, no grief, just release. Then I whispered to the wind, you were my storm, Cassie, but I was my own lightning. And as I walked away, the world felt lighter, because for the first time I wasn't living in her shadow, I was standing in my own light.